Hello again. Hi, everybody. Welcome back for another live stream with me, Lara Ryan from Complete Test Success. So today we are looking at academic IELTS writing task 1. And I have a graph that I'm going to get you to write an essay for. So what we're going to do in this is basically I'll show you this graph and together we'll write the different parts of the essay. So we'll start with the paraphrase, move on to the overview and the body paragraphs. So I'm going to kind of guide you through the process of writing. But what we'll do is I'll get you to share your essays or share your writing with me in the comments, and then I can give you feedback. So, if you're making any mistakes, I can point out what mistakes you are making. And then with that information, you'll be able to improve your scores. As well as that, then I'll take some good examples of writing and I'll add them to the screen. So as we go along, we'll build up the essay together. So first of all, let me just share the question with you here. All right, so this is the question. It's a table and it's based on the years 2000, 2020 and 2040. Okay, so as with all of these questions, we need to start by writing a paraphrase. So that is my first task for you guys here today. Write the paraphrase of that question and then share it with me in the comments. And I'll be able to give you feedback and let you know how you're getting on. Hi, Miro. Welcome to the lesson. Good to see you here. Okay, so just in case you're new to the IELTS test, when I say paraphrase the question, what I mean is you take this sentence up here at the top and you rewrite it in your own words. So this question says, the chart below shows the primary hobbies of the adult residents in a small Tunisian town since 1980 and predictions until 2040. Okay, so we need to write an paraphrase for that. So I'll let you guys write your paraphrase, share it with me in the comments, and then I'll take some good examples and I will help you improve your scores by pointing out any mistakes you're making. Crew, hi to you. Welcome to the lesson. Okay, so I'll just give you 1 minute, write the paraphrase, share it with me in the comments, and then I'll have feedback for you. Hi, Sha. Welcome. Good to see you here. Karen K. The data illustrates the major leisure activities of the adult residents of a small Tunisian city from 1980, including projections until 2040. Okay, so just some small little changes we need to make to that. But overall, it's clear which is the most important thing, and it has the same meaning. Okay, so let me just pop that onto the screen here, and we'll fix up the little mistakes that we can find. All right, so this is going to be, okay, the data illustrates the major leisure activities. So we'd say the main. Major means big, whereas primary just means, you know, like the main ones, or the ones that they would do most often. Of the adult residents of a small Tunisian town. A town and a city isn't the same, so we'll just copy the word town from 1980. Good. Including projections, not their projections, but just projections, because it wouldn't necessarily be the only set of projections. All right, very good. So what you'll see as well, and this is where I see a lot of students kind of struggle when they're paraphrasing, in that they try to change too many words. But what you'll see is a lot of the language has been copied. Like here we have of the adult residents of the adult residents. That's fine. If you don't know how to change it, that's okay. Don't overdo it. Don't feel like you have to change every word. A small Tunisian town, a small Tunisian town. So we copied that as well. So yes, of course, we're changing as much as we can, but don't feel that you need to change everything. It's a mistake that I see very, very often, where students try to change every single word. They end up making more mistakes because they're changing words that they didn't know how to change. They're using words that they think have the same meaning but don't. So then either it becomes unclear, which is obviously a problem, or it is it changes the meaning. Okay, so that's good. And the next job then is to write the overview for this question. So that's your next task. I'll let you guys write the overview, share it with me in the comments, and then I'll be able to give you feedback on anything you're doing right or wrong. I do have some other paraphrases here, so I will give feedback on the paraphrases that have been sent to me. But the next task at the moment is to write the overview. Okay, Miro, the table compares 9 different types of hobbies. Is 9 correct? Yep. So the table compares 9 different types of hobbies of the adults residing in a small, so we need the article, a small Tunisian town from 2020 to 2040. Not exactly, because it's not from 2000 to 2040, because 2040 is in the future. So it's kind of like from 2000 to 2020, and then there's some extra information. And we have to see those projections as separate. They're different pieces of information that we also have included. Okay. So overall good, but just separate the projections and put in the article. That grammar mistake, we want to fix that. Okay, next we have Max. Hi, Max. The table below, we don't copy the word below because the table won't be below our essay. So we just ignore the word below when we're paraphrasing. So we'll just have the table illustrates the favorite activities. Hobbies and activities aren't exactly the same. So we can just copy the word hobbies, like Miro has done here, change it to leisure activities, like Karan has done here, but activities isn't quite the same. So the table illustrates the favorite hobbies of adult inhabitants of a Tunisian town in 1980, 2000. That question doesn't make much sense, but what you're doing is fine. In 1980, 2000, 2020, and a projection for 2040. So yeah, there's the question. This is my fault. I made that question. It says since 1980, and it says 2000 and 2020. So that doesn't make sense. But look, let's just ignore that for now. That question statement should match the information in the question, and it doesn't. So that's just a poorly written question. I wrote it. That's my fault. I didn't check it carefully enough. So yeah, in terms of what you're writing, that all makes sense, and you've done a good job there. Should we write intro and overall? So yeah, we're just writing the overview at the moment. Humayun. The given chart illustrates what were the main, so we wouldn't have that, it would be what the main leisure activities of the adult population were, not what were the main. So the word were has to go after population. Everything else is good. In a small town in Tunisia, Tunisia needs to be a capital T, from 1950 and projections until 2040. So I don't know where you got 1950 from. I know I made a mistake in the question, but you'd either say from 1980, because that's what the question said, or from 2020, because, or from 2000, because that's what the graph says, but 1950 is definitely wrong. Okay, the table compares, did we see this one already? We didn't. The table compares the main hobbies of the adult citizens of a small town in Tunisia in terms of how much time they spent on them in 2000 and 2020, with projections given for 2040. Is it time? What do we see? It doesn't say anything about time. I wouldn't say that it's time. It's most likely the number of people, right? So the question doesn't say anything about time. I wouldn't infer that information. So it's not really like how many minutes or how many hours a day they spent or anything like that. So I would remove that thing about time from your paraphrase. Fatima, hi Fatima. The given table depicts the predominant hobbies on the youngsters' citizens. No, it says adults, not youngsters. Also, the word youngster is informal, so we don't want to use any informal vocab if we can avoid it in our IELTS writing. Okay, in a tiny Tunisian, tiny and small don't have the same meaning. Town, science, you've misspelled since. Over a period of 40, then you have to say 40 what? It has to say 40 years from 1980 and predictions in 2040 or something like that. So yeah, a few little changes to make there. Okay. Sorry, this is a new app that I'm using at the moment. I'm not fully familiar with it. Okay, so then we have Koala. Hi, Koala. The table illustrates the main pastime activities of the adult locals of a small Tunisian town from 1980 and some predictions to 2040. I would just remove the word some from predictions and everything else is really good. So that's a good piece of writing there. Well done. Okay, so we're just waiting on the your overviews, and then we'll take a look at those. There we go. That's what I was trying to do. Okay. All right, there we go. Now, so with the overview, I don't have any overviews yet, but let me just talk to you a little bit about what we are looking to do. Now, what we want to do is we want to keep it separate. So, you know, we have this tendency where we're going to go, okay, increases and decreases. So I'm going to go from 2000 to 2040, but the projections are separate. So we want to keep them separate. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare from 2000 to 2020, see which ones increased and decreased here first. And then we'll look at between 2020 and 2040 separately, because the future, obviously it hasn't happened yet, it's separate. So the data from the past is already there. So if we look at, so we have from 100 to 100, so that just stayed the same. 95 to 90, that one went down. 70 to 40 went down. 200 to 180, again, that's down. 100 to 110, that's the same. 190 to 180, that went down. 103 to 100, that went down a little bit. Okay, and now we're going to compare between 2020 and 2040. So we see 160 to 190, that's up again. And the next one is increase. This one is the same again. Now we have down again, down again, down again, same again, down again, down again. Okay, so basically we're trying to describe all of that stuff. Okay. And that will essentially be what we say in the overview. So let's see how you guys get on with it. If you can do it appropriately, great. If not, I will write it for you. Ibrahim asks, sir, I do not understand one thing. That is, what are the numbers about? Are they residents or what? It would look like the number of residents. Yeah, it would look like the number of residents. Miro, overall, it is seen that adults participating in TV and movies has increased significantly over the period shown, while video games saw the least preferable activities. So what you've done here, now you need to go, like, if you decide to go with highest and lowest, that's fine. If you decide to go with increases and decreases, that's fine. But you can't do a mixture. So what you're after doing here is, let's see now. Okay, so what you're after telling me in your overview, you have said adults watching TV rather than participating in TV. But anyway, participating in TV and movies has increased significantly over the period. Okay, so you're saying that this one increased. Okay. So if you tell me that that one increased, now I'm expecting you to tell me, did the other ones increase or decrease? But then what you say next is you say, while video games saw the least preferable activity. So that one increased and the other was lowest. So video games was lowest. But that's, you're analyzing them in different ways. So if you want to say all of these ones increased, these ones decreased, these ones stayed the same, you're analyzing each category in the same way. If you want to say this category was highest and this category was lowest, again, that's fine. You're analyzing them in the same way. But you don't go, this one increased and this one was lowest. You're analyzing in different ways. It doesn't make sense. You know, like in the same way, like let's say if we were buying a new phone, and I would say, compare these two, and you would say, this one is more expensive, and this one has a poor quality camera. That didn't make sense. That didn't work at all. Okay, so like let's say this one has a good camera, and this one has a good battery. So are you trying to say that this one is better than this one? The camera in this one is better than this one, or just this one is a good one? And is it better or is it good? Are they both good, or is one better than the other? I have to say I'm doing an absolutely terrible job of explaining this. Basically, you want to go with all the increases and decreases, or you want to go at highest and lowest. So choose one or the other, but don't mix them up. That doesn't work. All right. And that was a terrible example from me. Adult inhabitants. That's an unusual collocation. That wouldn't really go together. Interested in playing music seemed relatively the same throughout. So yeah, so now you're saying that one stayed the same. That's not really how we would do it. Okay. So let me put together an overview for this question here. Okay. So obviously every overview starts with overall. So overall. Now I'm looking at, they all did the same thing in each one, right? So these ones increased. These two stayed the same. And they're not increasing in, like, you know, between 2000 and 2020. They're doing the same thing. Each one is doing the same thing. So let's do something like this. We're going to say between 2000 and 2020. Okay, so overall, between 2000 and 2020, they all decreased. Except for TV and movies and working out, which both increased. And playing music and studying, which both remain the same. Between by 2040, it is predicted that every category will have the exact same trends. There we go. So basically what I've done is I've described all of those red arrows that I've drawn on the graph there. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about that? Please jump in. Feel free to ask. And from here, we need to move on to the body paragraph. So we're going to describe, like, we can describe between 2000 and 2020 in one, and then between 2020 and 2040 in another. But it's going to get a bit messy. We're going to end up having to describe 2020 twice. I think what would make more sense is to probably organize it, do like half the categories in body paragraph 1 and the other half of the categories in body paragraph 2. So how would I do that now? Maybe go with the higher ones. So maybe woodwork was highest in 2000. So maybe start with that. So have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we'll do like 5 categories in one and 4 categories in the other. So let's go woodwork, board games, next highest is this one, TV with 130. So that we do TV and movies. So I'm just trying to organize, like, you know, the higher ones. So then we have 105, 103. So let's go with working out and painting. So let's say body paragraph 1 will be those 5 categories, and then body paragraph 2 will be the rest of them. So we'll do 5 categories in one and 4 categories in the second body paragraph. So that's how we're going to organize that. You might decide to do them differently. You know, maybe if you were writing the essay, you would make a different decision as to how to organize them. But for the sake of this lesson, let's all just follow the same organization. It'll be easier to see how we're getting on. So write body paragraph 1 and share that with me in the comments. And as usual, then I will have some feedback for you about what you can do to improve those scores. Okay. Hey, Karamboy, good to see you here. Welcome to the lesson. Crew says, overall, from 2000 to 2020, some activities saw a decrease with an exception of a rise in 2040. That's unclear. Some activities saw a decrease with the exception of a rise in 2040. What that means, I don't understand what that means. It sounds like you're trying to say some categories decreased between 2000 and 2020, and then they're expected to increase between 2020 and 2040. And I'm looking at the data again to see, did I make any mistakes? And I guess I did. Painting went down and then went back up again. So that one is wrong. So that would affect my score. So let me see here. That went down and then went up. Do I have any other mistakes? If I have any other mistakes, guys, can you just let me know? And I'll make sure to fix it. I don't see anything else. Okay. So I need to fix that. Obviously, inaccurate information will result in a band 6 for task achievement. So I definitely don't want to have that mistake. By 2040, it's predicted that every category will have the exact same trends. Okay, so it is predicted that painting will be the only category with a different trend, as it is expected to increase slightly. Okay, now my information is accurate again. All right. So, crew, going back to your overview, maybe that's what you're referring to. It wasn't very clear, though. We need a comma before while. So let's start again. So it would be overall from 2000 to 2020, comma. Some activities saw a decrease. Now, you can't say some activities saw decreases and some saw increases. You need to tell me which ones saw decreases and which ones saw increases. So this would be too vague at the moment. Some saw increases, some saw decreases. We'd kind of expect that from most charts. So can you tell me more clearly which ones saw increases, which ones saw decreases? That would improve it. And then that thing where you said a decrease with an expectation of a rise, I'm not sure what you mean there. So then you have comma, while some experienced an increase with a prediction of a fall. Again, I'm not sure what you're trying to say here. With some maintaining the same number for both in the past and the prediction. So I think it's just the language. I think you're trying to use some vocab that you're not comfortable with. If you can use language that you're less, that's probably easier for you to use. So maybe some vocab you're more comfortable with, some vocab that you're probably, that you would use more often, that's more familiar to you. You'll often do better with that type of vocab because you'll be able to communicate more clearly. So I wonder maybe, is it that you need to work on your vocab, or is it that you need to reduce the range of vocab to make it easier to understand? It could be either of those things. It might also be because you're trying to describe 2000 to 2020 and 2040 all at the same time. So maybe if you just did one first and then did the other one afterwards, maybe that would be easier for you as well. So, you know, you can consider that too. Hamayun has an overview here as well. So just be careful. You've written down 2020 as 20020. It's a typo. I think most examiners would see that as a typo, but potentially that could be seen as inaccurate information. So just be careful. Make sure you're not making those little mistakes. Okay, so overall from 2000 to 2020, the number of people who watched TV and movies and worked out at their free time increased, and the figures for these categories are expected to rise. Okay, expected to rise further by 2040. But I would say while you're doing it, you still have a lot more. You still have a lot more to talk about there. So you've described 2 categories, but there are a total of 9. and we need to discuss all 9. You can't just ignore 7 of the categories. It's different when you're talking about highest and lowest. It's different because if you say, I have 9 categories, this one is the highest and this one is the lowest, you know that all the other ones are in between. But when you're describing increases and decreases, if you go, these 2 increased, it doesn't give you anything about the other ones. So that's kind of problematic as well. Watching, so this is a new one here. Mayank, hi Mayank. Watching TV, movies, and engaging in working out are the only 2 leisure activities which show upward trends in the prediction, that is 130 in 2000 and 160 and 190 in 2000 and 2040 respectively. So when you say 130 in 2000 and 160 and 190 in 2020 and 2040 respectively, what is respectively? So you have 2 categories, watching TV and movies, and then you have 3 pieces of data, 130, 160 and 190, and you have so you have 130 in 2000. So you have 160 and 220, 160 and 190 in 2020 and 2040. So that means 160 is for 2020, 190 is for 2040, but you have 2 categories, watching TV and movies and working out. So which of those ones are you talking about? So that's quite unclear when you're describing that data as to which one you're trying to describe. I can look at the graph and I can see that you're describing TV and movies, but without looking at the graph, I would never be able to guess that you were talking about TV and movies and not working out, or which one it was. It's quite unclear. A bigger problem than that, well, that's a coherence and cohesion problem, but for your task achievement score, you should never put any data in the overview. So this isn't the overview, is it? This is the body paragraph. Or is it the overview? It must be the body paragraph. No, I'd say what's happening here is you're trying to describe 2 categories at the same time. Just do them separately. Do watching TV first, say what the figures are for that one, and then talk about working out later on. That's the part that's adding confusion, because all of your data is about watching TV, but the fact that you've put working out at the start of that sentence makes it look like you're also talking about that, and it's getting quite confusing. So yeah, that's the problem. Remove working out and write about that in a separate sentence. Crew, you're very welcome. My pleasure. Okay. Karamboy, focusing on the increases, 130 adults chose TV and movies as a hobby in 2000, a figure that then saw a considerable rise, reaching 160 in 2020. As for the future, it is predicted to rise to 190 by 2040. Lovely. So that's what we're looking to do. Just describe one category at a time and do it clearly. Okay, so I'm going to copy that. I'm going to add that to the screen. So this would go here, but we're not going to have space for all of that. So let me just make a copy of this, and I will start writing the body paragraph here instead. Okay, so focusing on the increases, 130 adults chose TV and movies as a hobby in 2000, a figure that then saw a considerable rise, reaching 160 in 2020. As for the future, it is predicted to rise. This is because it's like, watching TV. This is predicted to rise to 190 by 2040. Okay, good. One thing I would worry about when I see this, though, is we have to write about 9 categories. And if we write that many words for every category, it's going to be very challenging to finish that essay in the 20 minutes that we're given. It's going to be very, very long. So what you should do when you see a question like this, where there's lots of data and many different categories, you need to react. Like as soon as you've finished the overview, you need to react and go, okay, every description has to be as concise as possible. And the concern here would be it might be challenging to finish this essay in 20 minutes if we continue writing that many words for each category. So we need to be more concise than that. So with that in mind, let me try and make it a bit shorter. I would probably do something like this. For watching TV and movies, 130 adults chose this in 2000. I figure that then saw a considerable rise. I'd probably go and reached 160 in 2020. And then in the future is unnecessary because we already know the prediction is for the future. So this is predicted to rise to 190 by 2040. So this is what I mean is like your writing, Karamboy, is really strong. So it's a very well written description. But the concern being, are we actually going to finish this essay on time? And that's a real concern in the IELTS test. When you only have 20 minutes, you know, very often the goal of having a very beautifully written essay goes out the window when you see a question with so much data like this one. So, you know, if there were only 3 categories, certainly writing in that much detail is probably necessary. So our essay isn't too short, but you need to be able to adapt. So lots and lots of data, be more brief, get the job done, and don't worry about, like, you know, the range of vocab and the range of grammar being a bit more limited. You really don't have a choice. You just need to get the job done and then move on. Okay. Overall, from 2000 to 2020, we looked at this already, did we? No. There's another student made the exact same mistake with the year 2020, 220,020. Anyway, so this is Adil. Hi, Adil. Overall, from 2000 to 2020, the number of people who watched TV and movies and worked out in their free time increased, and the figures for these categories are expected to rise by 2040. However, the number of those playing music and studying remained. Okay, so that comment is a bit long. I have the rest of the comment here. Remain the same, with the expectation to remain at the same level until 2040. Good. Other activities witnessed falling trends from 2000 to 2020, and their values are forecast to decrease further. So I think what you would say, instead of saying other, it would be all of the other, just to make it clear that we're not talking about some other ones, we're talking about all the other ones. And then you said, with the exception of painting, for which popularity is predicted to go up. Good. Mayank, sure, you're welcome, no problem. Okay, so similarly, the number of adults who chose working out as a hobby there's some mistake there, Cranboy, and I know from your writing that it's a typo of something, a typo of some description. The number of adults who chose working out as a hobby, a 5 increase every 2 decades, and the figure is projected to rise until 115. Oh, okay, so it had an increase of 5 every 2 decades. You see, I don't like these types of descriptions, because what you're doing is you're creating a math problem for the reader that really slows down their ability to just read that and move on. So let's say what you've done is you said it was +5. Oh, hang on, no, let me make this marker a bit thinner. Okay, so you said it was +5 each year. So it was +5, and it was +5, and it was +5. And then that is equal to 115. So our unknown then is, what was it at the beginning? So if I want to know where it started, I have to go 115 minus 5 minus 5 Oh, I've done too many of those. So it's 115 minus 5 minus 5. So it's 115 minus 10 is 105. That's kind of challenging. So what we have is that's the problem. So it's x plus 5 plus 5 equals 115. Okay. So then the unknown is x. So you said plus 5, but I had to add them together. That's 10. Move them across here and make that minus 10. So to understand what x is, the unknown being the first year, I have to figure all that out myself. So I would say a much clearer way of writing is if you want to say plus 5 each year, that's fine, but do it the other way around. So instead of giving me the final figure and then I have to figure it out that way, if you start with the first one and you said it was 105 and then it increased by 5 each year, then I'm going 105 plus 5 for the next year. Okay, that's 110. Plus 5 for the next year. Okay, that's 115. So I don't need to work as hard to figure it out. When you give me the first figure and then say plus 5, I'm okay with that. I feel like my brain doesn't need to do as much work. But when you say plus 5 equals 115, then I have to work it all out the other way around. It's not the clearest way of describing that. So what I would say is make it as easy as possible for the reader. Don't make them go through all of that effort to figure out what you're saying. Because when you think about coherence and cohesion, it's like, can I read that sentence and then move on to the next one? Not really. You've created a math problem for me to solve before I can continue, before I can kind of imagine what we're talking about. So the plus 5 and the plus 5 is fine, but do it the other way around. Start with the initial figure and then say it was plus 5. That's a lot clearer for the reader. They're going to understand that a lot more easily. Okay. So let me take your writing and I'll add it in here, and I'll just kind of change it around the way I would say is more manageable to follow. The next thing I suppose is, why did you say similarly? What is similar? Similarly, the number of adults who chose working out as a hobby increased by 5 every 2 decades, but the other one didn't increase by 5. It went from 130 to 160, so that's an increase of 30, and then another increase of 30. So I'm going to remove that. There's nothing similar there. So the number of adults who chose working out, let's just say who worked out, and then again I want to keep it short, started with 105 and increased by 5 in 2020 and is projected to increase by 5 again by 2040. That's how I would work with that one. Okay. So I have another lesson coming up. I'm just going to look at whatever comments are left and we'll finish up there for today. If anyone has any questions for me, jump in and let me know what your questions are, and we'll wrap up then in the next couple of minutes. Mayank, can I write like this? TV and movies, working out, playing music, and studying in one particular. Yeah, you can write down. So what are you trying to highlight here? Oh, in one paragraph, is it? Yeah, you can do, well, like whatever makes sense to you. I mean, if you see a reason for putting those together, that's fine. I mean, I just chose the ones that were kind of higher in 2000 and the ones that were lower in 2000. I suppose we could have put all the ones that decreased together and then all the ones that increased and stayed the same together. There are different ways of organizing them. And to be honest, it's not the most important decision. If you see an obvious way of organizing them in terms of what information do you put in body paragraph 1 and what information do you put in body paragraph 2, I mean, whatever makes sense to you is fine. If west, east, south, and north are not given in task 1 maps, can I write east and west to describe? You can. Yeah, that's no problem. So usually they'll have a compass, but sometimes they don't. But yeah, you can definitely still use that language. You know, it would be very unusual for someone to hand you a map where north is facing to the left. You know, like most maps are handed to us with north facing upwards. That's fairly standard practice. So yes, that's fine. If there is no compass, go ahead, use those terms to describe the locations. That's no problem. Okay, so I think that's going to be it for today, guys. I'll be back next week. We'll do another live stream. And as usual, if any of you guys need help with the IELTS test, if you're looking for feedback or you need support with improving your scores, that's my email address, lara@completetestsuccess.com. Feel free to reach out there. And like I said, I'll be back next week with another live stream. And I'll talk to you all then. Take care of yourselves. Bye.